Round 3 of the Tal Memorial was full of drama. Kramnik played an exchange sacrifice. Nakamura played the King's Gambit. Magnus Carlsen was held easily by Caruana. He still can't get into gear. Grischuk and Morozevich played a crazy game that Moro won in the end. But my play of the day has to be the game between Levon Aronian and Luke McShane. Luke McShane, of course, lost the first 2 games, so still can't get on the board. Let's take a look at what happened. Aronian had the white pieces. He played d4 as usual, and McShane played a Slav, well, a semi-Slav, the Chebenenko variation that we saw in the World Championship. And here Aronian played a slightly unusual move, bishop g5. And this leads to such sharp positions, and McShane is not backing down. Both players could kind of play quieter continuations here. I'm just going to run through the first few moves. And here, this offers a sacrifice, which Aronian took. Knight takes b5, exploiting the pin on the a file. So, in this position, Aronian is the exchange up, but these pawns here are potentially very annoying for white because it's going to be difficult to get this bishop out. And here's the trick, that after e6, suddenly white is very poorly developed and it's going to be very hard to deal with this check on b4, which is exactly what happened. Now if knight d2, then of course knight e4 wins. So white has to play king e2. Now this is serious compensation for the exchange, because white's king is stuck in the middle, blocks the bishop's development. But white is very solid here. So the battle lines are drawn. Can black somehow use his nice development and the fact that white's king is stuck in the middle? Can white successfully regroup? Well, I can't do justice to all the moves in this game. I'm going to leap forward to this position after the 24th move. And we can see that, well, white's king has managed to retreat and the bishop has developed. But McShane has, well, he's castled and brought this knight to b3. And this is very strong indeed, because it somehow dominates this rook on a2, which still isn't finding any play on the a file. And white's pieces are really split here. The king, of course, can't castle, it's moved. So the king is stuck in the middle, and it's very difficult for white to coordinate. Now Aronian has been trying to hack his way through to the king, but still hasn't really got an open file. And after McShane's next move, queen b6, I think this exposes the inadequacies with Aronian's position. The pawn on e3 is threatened, and it's not really possible to defend this pawn successfully. For example, if rook h3, then a simple move, simple centralization. The rook comes opposite the queen, threatening a deadly discovered attack. Well, the queen only has one decent square, b1, and now a great move, knight f4. Perhaps not so difficult to see. Somehow, these moves play themselves. Black's pieces are sort of drawn forward after the knight's taken. Queen g1 check, and rook d2, and there's no decent defense to queen f2 mate, for example. Again, a beautiful centralization of black's pieces, but white's pieces are split apart. Let's go back. So Aronian tried bishop f3. McShane took on e3, it's breaking through. Aronian exchanged and played queen e2, hoping to, well, if he manages to exchange pieces, then he's back in the game. But of course, McShane refused to exchange queens. And now they repeated moves a few times. McShane short of time, as ever. But he loves these complex positions, and now of course he declined to repeat again. And if the queens are exchanged, then because of the threat to the rook, then black is going to remain material ahead here. I mean, this is, with two pieces against the rook, this should be an easy win for black. So after this, Aronian had to take on f3, and again McShane repeated moves just to get closer to the time control. But in this position he played the queen back to f4, so black is still an exchange down, but it's very hard for white to do anything here, even though he has a whole move to try and free himself, try to coordinate. It's very, very difficult indeed. Black has a number of threats. One is to bring the rook in here, very simple. Another is to play knight d4, attacking the queen, and of course the pawn on f3. So this is extremely difficult. Probably Aronian is lost here. He tried queen h2. McShane took on f3 again. You don't exchange queens here. And now a check on e4. And this is very nasty indeed. Let's have a look at what happens if queen e2, then queen b1 picks up the hapless rook on a2. So after the check, the king came to f2, and now the knight came in. It's all terribly simple. Queen and knight are often a deadly attacking force. They complement each other beautifully, and here they are easily superior to white's queen and two rooks. Okay, there are all kinds of threats that black has here. Let me just show you one nice variation. If rook e1, then we take, and there's a nice fork on f3, winning material. So obviously there's a threat to play check, or it's one of the threats, and pick up the rook here. So rook g1, and after queen f3, Aronian resigned. King, let's just see what would happen. The king comes back, queen e3 check. If the queen goes in the way, then knight f3, it's all forced. And then rook d8, and well, everything's falling apart. The queen is going, the rook's going. It's dreadful. Okay, let's go back. So king d1 instead. And now there are several ways to win. I think the very simplest and clearest is just to play knight f3, hitting the queen and hitting the rook, and also threatening rook d8, and probably mate follows shortly. Understandable why Aronian decided not to play this position on. Great comeback from Luke McShane. So he has 1 win and 2 losses. It's going to be tough for him. He's only an amateur, remember, but I think this game showed his strengths. He's brilliant at calculating and also completely fearless. He's really an enterprising player. So things are really hotting up in Moscow. They've got a rest day tomorrow, but I'll be back with reports on later rounds. Hopefully you'll join me then.